Hello, welcome. Welcome to another Vercel community session. We are so excited to have you here. I'm especially excited because this is my first community session as your host. I'm Maya Abendanyo, and I'm a DX engineer in the community team here at Vercel. You may have seen me around in the community spaces, so yeah, it's a real pleasure to be able to connect with you all here and hang out for a little while. If this is your first time in one of our sessions and you can't see the chat, then feel free to join on our community platform at community.vercel.com/live. And there you can use the chat, you can ask questions, which we highly recommend. Or if you're watching on X or any other platform, feel free to use that as well. So yeah, it's great to see some of you already here. Drop a message in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Alrighty. So now for today's session, you may recognize our guest from our previous live event on how to create and publish skills. So if you caught that one, you know we're in for a treat today. In this session, he's going to help us level up our workflows. So if you've ever felt like your terminal could be doing more for you, especially when working with AI agents, then yeah, this session is for you. It's a real pleasure to introduce John from the AI DX team here at Vercel.
Hey everyone, welcome.
Hey John, welcome back.
Me, Maya. Yeah, good to be here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We can get started.
Yeah, take it away.
Sweet. You can see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right. So please ask questions. I am very happy to help you out and explain anything in more detail than what I cover. I got plenty of material planned here to talk about, but I'm always happy to go off on tangents and go deeper or talk about related things. So that being said, as we enter the agentic era of development, a lot of people are rediscovering the power of terminals. And the power of terminals is all about composability, building all of these little tools, this philosophy of little tools that send data to each other, or that can be invoked in a single keystroke, or that can be run in a single pane in your little multiplexing terminal. So you can have so many sessions going at the same time and have so many AI agents running. And we're realizing all over again, as we've been addicted to IDEs the past, however many decades or whatever, that the terminal is just this magical place if you learn how to use it. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of the tricks I use for working with agents, and talk about how they've developed over time and what we can do with them. So kind of first and foremost, we'll talk about using a single letter. So with ZSH, which is the shell that Mac terminals run in, you can define ZSH functions. Those are defined if you just ask your AI agent to find where your ZSH config is set. It can define functions for you. So if you're used to typing in your terminal Claude or Codex or whatever, it's much faster just to type X. And then that can open a Claude session for you, can configure some things and set some permissions. So say, for example, I'll start going past my slides if I don't keep on moving them. You can set X to dangerously skip permissions and pass in all of the arguments. So I actually ran a diagnostic on it, and in the recent history, I had 1,388 usages of this. So I've done a lot of agentic stuff. So one tool I will call out right away is a tool called Atuin. And this isn't an Atuin session or anything, but it's a great history manager. Unfortunately, I can't really dive into it because I can't show you the history of bash commands I've run on my computer. It's like too much private stuff there. I strongly recommend it for things like analyzing commands you've run in the past and asking AI agents to say, please look at my bash history, which is saved anyway. Look at my bash history, look at my Atuin history, find out all of the previous commands I've run. What are some things I could do to optimize my workflows? Like, that is the bread and butter of like leveling yourself up in the terminal. Is it can analyze where you're at and help guide you along the way. If you're just getting started, it'll show you the basic tricks. If you have a lot of things installed, it can show you how to compose them together. It's just this wonderful prompt of, check out my bash history, how can I level up? So with that being said, a few of the ones that I've kind of built up over time. So after running this so many times, I'm like, I just want this at a single letter. And so after that, I said, okay, I want a print mode one. I want one that always invokes a certain skill. So if I look at like XSK, you can see this is requiring a skill name for me to run. So if I run XSK and I have a Geist design, this is going to start up a session with Geist design running. So I could do Geist design and then pass in a prompt after that to have it like design a site or a page using Geist styles. So,
can you tell us a little bit more about Geist design? Folks who don't know.
So the Geist design system is for cells. If you just Google it, Mike, and it's GEIST. I'm not going to switch over to any browsers right now, but it's a design system used by Vercel in all of our documentation, all of our sites, which has just really beautiful iconography, really beautiful like rules around layouts and colors and everything to make things look nice. And so it's something when we're building demos, we use it all the time. All right, so this can load in any skill. This is one I use, I can talk about later to set up parallel agents. This is one that can even like open up multiple browsers and ask browsers to do things through ChatGPT itself. This one does review loops. This one can fan out into multiple workers. Like the more and more you do things, the more and more little aliases you can set up, and the more kind of muscle memory for your fingers. Like I want to do this thing, I just type a couple characters. All right. So essentially you start with the original one, and then you realize that there's all these variants as you go along that you'll want to build up things over time. So start small and then just think about what's next, and then start adding more and more little tools to your bucket. All right. So the pattern is usually like you'll set up an alias, which is just a single line. I realized over time, well, I actually want to pass some more flags to this. So I needed to pass the remaining arguments to, like, don't worry too much about this bash syntax, that the AI can explain it to you. This will pass in all the flags and arguments to this so I can customize it. And as I'm passing more and more flags, like custom models or custom flags, I'm like, okay, this can be consolidated into its own function. And then you eventually end up with lots and lots of little functions that you'll use all the time. So other shortcuts I use quite a bit is like just sourcing my ZSH file. So for me, I actually have that bound to a single letter since I change every time you change your ZSH file, which has your ZSH function in it. If you have a terminal open, for it to be able to run that function, it needs to source the file so it realizes things have changed. Mine is aliased to S. So if I type S, now it's sourced my ZSH RC file. Well, mine is in a .config directory, but for most people, it's this way. And it will make all those changes for you. And this is just making sure you have all the editors installed or the AI tools. And then you can even do like little Git shortcuts of, I'll show how these compose a bit more as we get into composing. And let's talk about this little, you can call it funct. All right. So funct is a tool that some people don't realize is the ZSH is capable of looking at its own configuration and finding a function. So if I have a function called X, so if I say which X, this can actually show me the definition of that function. But I can also set up a function that if I say funced for func edit or funct, this can pop open my browser or my editor so that I can look immediately at the definition. It jumps like straight to that line so that I can modify that line. So if I close this, I'll just show this again. It opened on another display before. This opens Z directly to that line, and I can go in and check on it and edit it. So anytime I have a question about one of the aliases I've set up, and sometimes it's difficult, like where is it, which file is it in? You'll eventually get lots of files in your configurations. Then you can just go ahead and like set up a single function which can open that in your editor, or open it if you're a Vim or Emacs or whatever, open it inline inside of the terminal itself.
Quick one. Speaking of files and configurations, we've got a great question in the community chat. So they said, how do you manage your config files, .files, splitting agent config between personal and project level and syncing it across machines, including CI/CD?
So the agents config, I assume it's talking about the like claw.md and agents.md files, which essentially are the memory/configuration files for individual agents. If that's what it's taught, or like the .claude folder and .codex folder and all those are things that there are specific rules for. In the project level, you define project-specific rules, or for your own custom rules, you define them at the user level inside of your home directory. So essentially, I just say if this isn't needed by the project, then I don't put it in the project, and then I'll either hoist it up to the user level, or if I don't want it in there at all, I can set up just a folder somewhere that with ZSH functions, you could say just load in this markdown file or read these docs, and you can set that to kind of preload in a bunch of context. And that's something I'm going to be talking about here in a second, is like context preloading, which is a lot of what configuration is talking about. But when you get into the more advanced configuration around custom hooks and when they should run and which functions have permission for those things, those can also, if you set up custom, if you look at Claude help, you can see a lot of options in here around what settings it loads in, which configuration it loads in and whatnot. And one trick I use a lot is I'll go in here and say Claude help, and this will load in. So sorry, I pressed the exclamation mark. I typed in Claude help. This essentially loads in the docs for Claude into the context of the current running agent, so that any question I ask from now on is like, I want to set up a configuration to do X, Y, or Z. Then it has the context of the docs and of the CLI and its help and man pages, however you want to look at it, right there in the context, so it can easily know exactly what it has access to, and it doesn't have to go like look online for it or anything. And this is awesome for a lot of tools where you can, for any any tool you want to look up. Let's do Codex help. Because Claude and Codex and Copilot and Cursor and OpenCode and AMP and I know did I say Copilot? I don't. There's so many versions and so many more are going to be coming out, and they all have different flags and they all have different configurations. I've essentially given up and I just rely on like dumping the help into the agent and having it write the things that I want, rather than trying to remember every single flag and every single configuration. Very, very long-winded answer, and I hope one of those things hit on the question. Cool.
Great, thanks.
All righty. So yeah, anytime you have these little functions, just typing in whatever function you want to edit, I can just go, let's jump straight to there. Again, this opened on my other display, but it popped straight to that function, and I can go ahead and start editing those things. And I don't have to worry about them being too hidden away. I have agents generate them, and if I want to tweak them, I can just use that little funct command. All right, so as I just showed, this was like demo time to show it. I can go in, edit it, edit the function, hit S to reload my ZSH, and then type it out again, and and then I'm just set. Like that's the entire process of just something goes wrong with the function. I go in and funct ed X. I find X, and instead of this, I just wanted to echo hi. I hit save, I jump back to my terminal, and now I source, and now if I run X, this is just going to echo out hi instead. So from here, let's, I'm going to undo that and then close that out and source it. And then I have X back to where it was of opening Claude Code. Right on. Just take my time here.
It's like witnessing wizardry here. It's great.
I have so much to talk about. All right. So standard in, standard out. Piping is magical, and it's the way that we build pipelines. It's the way we compose little functions together. And it's the way that one tool feeds its information into another tool. And it's the way things have worked for a very, very long time. So if you think of piping, a very simple demo of it is if I echo text, like if I echo say hello, then it will print out the text say hello. If I echo say hello and I pipe it, so typing the pipe character, I'm going to pipe it into H is my Claude code with a haiku model, and I'll say write a poem about this or whatever I want it to say. Then it'll take that initial say hello, it'll feed it in Claude code as the piped context, and then I can put together a chain of things where one feeds into the other. So now this does know about the context of the project I'm in, which is a slideshow terminal, like terminal tricks workshop. So it says hello as part of the poem, and then writes a poem about my workshop. But so what you can do here, I'm probably getting ahead of my slides. Let me talk about my slides. So you can take a bunch of files and then pipe them into a tool. I have a files. If I look at which files, I have something that prints out a whole bunch of files. So if I say files, and I want to look at all of the files in my slides directory, this is going to print out all of the files, and I could take the context of all of those and essentially shove them into an agent up front to like force it to be aware of all those files, all of that context, and my files function labels all the files and everything. And this allows it to skip over all of that researching and searching and like trying to find where things are if I know exactly like the folder I want to preload into there. Similarly with a clipboard, something I'll do all the time is like I have some logs here, and I would like copy and paste the logs, and you can do paste, and I'll say, this is again, X or H is Claude code with a haiku model. I can say explain this, and this will pipe in like everything I selected over here, and the prompt will be explain this. And so if I had some logs and I said, please fix this or whatever, you can always have a PB paste is the way to take the clipboard contents and like shove it into an AI agent, which is something you'll be doing a lot. There's a lot of other patterns around having these spin up dev servers and watching the logs and whatnot for observability, but that's a discussion for a different day.
Quick question on that. So yeah. In the community chat, we have a question that says, how do you think about security when piping logs or project files into agents from the terminal?
For security, you probably mean like making sure private data doesn't get into there. A lot of the things I do when building out projects is I'll tell them to create AI-friendly logs, which will, so a lot of logs will either be like very verbose or JSON or something of that nature. And I'll ask it to put kind of a layer, like for your dev script when you start up your dev server or whatever project, have it write kind of a wrapper script around that, which will filter out the logs and even compress the logs. So it takes words like info and compresses it down to the letter I. It takes timestamps and compresses them down to like minimal things, which are huge context savers, and they're ways of filtering out any like unwanted keys or routes or anything that you wouldn't want to send to your AI. It's a very powerful pattern to write these. You leave your dev server script like the way that it would be, but you have like an AI dev server script, which is a wrapper which filters out all of the extra stuff that you don't want your AI agents to be looking at. That's my personal approach. All righty. And then also, if a certain tool doesn't support piping, often what you can do is just use the subshell capture. If I type a string like, so if you remember that files command, this one, I can capture that inside of a string and then capture that inside of what's going to execute this function, and then throw that function or evaluate the function and then print that out as a string so that now it's a part of that string. So if I build this up so that I say, here's a prompt I'm passing to Claude, and I want to say, summarize this workshop. It's going to have all of those files in context right up front. You see all of them got slammed in there up front. And all it has to do is summarize this workshop. And then once this is done, it should have a summary in there, depending, like it's defaulting to Opus, and it should be. So if you want to see like read ahead of what we're talking about, one letter shortcuts, pipe everything, agent personas, multi-agent orchestration, and all sort of stuff. So this works especially well for if you have like modules for whatever things, or your project is working on a specific feature. You can grab those specific files, shove them in, and then say, please do this thing for all these files. It's one of those, like, if you want to be a good pair programmer with an agent, it's on your shoulders to know which files represents which features so that you can feed it ahead of time and save it all of that extra work from searching for files. If you think of agents having to call all these tools, run all these evaluations, do all these things, you're giving it a whole bunch of work to do, which is fine. But if you want the agent to go much, much faster, you can be the person who knows about the systems, how they work, how to work on features. And then you can set up all these shortcuts and wrap it around with extra functions that load in these files, and save your agent that work, or ask your agent to build those little shortcuts and aliases as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there are specific tips and tricks for agents helping us with understanding our systems.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. The number one thing I can recommend is, so like xres is going to ask me which session I want to resume from. So I'm going to resume from my most recent session there. Xcon is a funny way of like resuming from my most recent session. During any session, one of the best things you can do is just type export. Most of the AI agents have this feature where you can export copy of the clipboard, and you can take this conversation and drop it in. So again, I can PB paste, or I can set up a function that would PB paste for me. And I like to dictate a lot. I'll say, based on this conversation, what are some things we can do next time that'll help things go faster? And then let that dictate and go in there, hit enter. And now we have a previous conversation. We have an AI agent looking at a previous conversation, and you can kind of level up together on, it looks like I didn't copy that or something. But that's the idea of taking, I should be in the clipboard unless I did something else. Oh, that's right, sorry. When I dictated, it overwrote the clipboard that I exported the conversation from. So that's why that one didn't work.
Gotcha.
Anyway, if I go back to my clipboard history, which I'm not going to show on screen,
no worries.
Again, it's, you don't want to show work stuff. Alrighty. So yeah, you can definitely work with it that way, where you export previous conversations. There are some tools out there that can go and read like all of your past conversations. The key to getting better with building with agents is to do it a lot, and then like get your reps in, as put your 10,000 hours in or whatever, and then each time, stop every once in a while at the end of every day or whatever, and review everything it did. And with your agent, sit down and say, hey, you know what? I had these rough patches today where it had a hard time compiling. We had a hard time with this layout thing. We had a hard time with X, Y, or Z. And then like, how can we tomorrow improve? Like what tools could you build for yourself to improve? What information should I know that I'm lacking based on the questions I asked? And have those sorts of conversation where you sit down with your agent and kind of do kind of postmortems or retros or whatever you want to call it, and really dig deep and review what exactly happened during the day, focusing on what didn't go well, and so you can make the tools for tomorrow. All righty. Definitely going to talk more about these. That's probably the next slide. Yeah, so like I said, these will inline it. I skipped ahead on these. Yeah, if you ever see a project like NPX skills is something we talked about last week, and you want an AI agent to explain it, you could hop in here and say NPX skills help, and you can say explain this. What I do often is I drop in a markdown page break between like a huge dump of logs or a huge dump of a help section or whatever. And I'll drop in a page break just so the AI knows like this is definitely separate from that thing. And this is a great way of quickly explaining and getting to know tools and helping it learn and understand. Or you could say like, how can we best use this tool for our project or whatever. All right, cool. I'm going to stop that. And we'll definitely talk about those a bit more with demos. Okay, looks like I skipped ahead on some of these. There are some tricks around as you get into more complex commands, like running a group of commands. If you want to PB paste and then do something and then pipe, like there's some more advanced chaining syntax we're not going to really dive into. And once you start getting into those situations, just setting up, asking the agent to build a function for you rather than trying to remember or type out all that syntax is the way that I do it. But just remembering that it's always text in, text out, and like AI is the intelligence in the middle where you can, this is, the text in here is on the right side, but it's running this, that's going to pipe text through here into this one, and then use this text, and then the result over here is going to be more text. And if you just keep that in mind when you're building, like AI agents are just, they're often described as the like world's smartest translator. Like no matter what data you give it, you could translate it into any language or any format or any blog post or any tweet or whatever. And so if you kind of keep that in mind of agents can take in any text and then pipe them out to another agent for more text and think of your chains that way, then you'll be in great shape.
We have a comment in the community just on agents and models, actually. So they said, I recently found out I'd been using models incorrectly. I've been using Opus for coding when apparently it's best for planning. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that? I know models are changing quite rapidly at the moment.
Yeah, currently I do Opus for planning / managing Codex agents. That's pretty off topic of, like, it'd take us way far off of what we're talking about today, but essentially because in a Claude session, you can tell it to run Codex, and then you can tell Codex to set to a certain model with a model flag and like a certain level of thinking. You can tell Opus to plan tasks, like take this task, divide it into 5 parallel tasks, and then hand that over to 5 Codex agents using the GPT 5.3 Codex model. And then it can do a pretty good job of running things in parallel. It's pretty similar to what Codex would do with, or sorry, what Claude would do with its Teams feature, where it could spin up a team for you and tackle those. It's a bit more manual though. And I have some skills set up for it. If you want to make a skill for it, like I always recommend people go and try your own skill rather than like coming to me and asking for my skill, and describe it the way that you want it. Like tell the agent, I want a skill that takes Claude code and does this with a Codex agent and blah, blah, blah. And see how that works. And then just feel ownership of that skill. So then when things go wrong, which they inevitably will do, you feel empowered to edit the skill and continually change it. because often if you take someone else's skill, and unless it's like an official skill from, for example, for Vercel's like, Next.js skill or workflow skill or whatever, like we put a lot of work into those to make sure that they work well, right? And they're very targeted for like, when you're doing this, use these rules. But if you're building skills that you want for your specific workflows, I really recommend taking ownership of them and figuring those out for yourself, so you feel enabled and empowered to continually tweak them as things fail, as things go wrong. You can just keep on iterating to greatness, which is something we say a lot inside of Vercel.
Absolutely. Great piece of advice. Thank you.
Cool. All right. It is let's see, 1:32, and I'm on slide 13. This might have to be two. All right, we're going to stop at 45 minutes, so I'll get to whatever slide I can get to and kind of go from there. All right, so bundlers. I've written a few bundlers. The one I showed originally was just files, and files just took all of these and packaged them. A tool called packx, if you look for this on NPM, is going to allow you to select files kind of manually. So you can go in here and unload. So I can unload all of them by tapping A. I can select, I want this chapter and this chapter and this chapter. And I can press left and right to like navigate into them. And I want my package JSON, I want my README. So you can build up a little bundle of files that you want to send into an AI agent. If you're, and then once you have all these set up, you can create a configuration that will load these in, set up a ZSH alias for it, and like continue to iterate on that. But again, this is like forcing context ahead of time for using exactly the things that you want. And also, like once you're done, there's a pack.ignore file if you want this to load by default. I'm going to say no, don't load it by default. And so I copied that to the clipboard, and it's going to copy essentially those 5 files that I selected, so that if I open an agent, it'll paste those exact files in there, and then I'm able to operate on those exact files. Often what this is used for is if you want to do like smaller, cheaper, faster models locally, and you want to have like a plan for some of the smarter models you have like limited access to, but you want to dump a ton of context to them in the browser. This is a great way of like bundling up your application for the browser. And a lot of the, not a lot, all of the models have limits on how many tokens it can provide. So you can see there's a token count as you use this of how many tokens it's going to send over as you select the files. So it's kind of a rough estimate based on one of the token calculators, but this will enable you to package up projects, package up modules, and send them wherever you want them to go. And you can even, I have a packx skill, which I built the exact same way, where I took in here, I said packx, I did help. So it dumped all of the help into there. And then I had a create skill, which I can say, please go and create a skill for this library, so that when I run it again, it can intelligently make a bundle of the code that references whatever features, whatever documentation, like whatever I want it to, so that in the future, a skill is very similar to like a ZSH function, but it's more like intelligence baked in because it's a markdown file that AIs read. In the future, I'll be able to use a skill with those specific files, or use a skill with packx or with any other file bundler that that will enable you to move a lot faster. Like there's the concept of, I sit down on my computer, I look at my terminal, and there's that huge hurdle of getting started, like that cold start. How do I go from like not working to working? And if I need that feature and that, and I'm working on this task, like how can I get there? And having like little helpers, like bundles of code, having an AI that understands bundling code and all these sorts of things can take you pretty far. And you can even set up a chain for like one that bundles and then it pipes into another AI agent that does tasks, and another agent that does reviews. And and on and on.
Yeah, that's great to know that they can help us reduce that friction as well. Help us to cook faster.
Yeah, they're not just for code. And I think that's like one of the things we need to focus on going forward is agents building tools for agents. Like agents, the whole idea of AI, which I'll keep on repeating, is that you gather data and then you try something and then improves upon itself. Like it tries to do a task and it fails on it and it does better next time. And so you have to keep that in mind. Like every time I'm doing something, what data can I gather from it? And then what is my actual goal? What is the training I can put the AI agent through so that next time we're going faster? And so a huge part of that is agents building tools for themselves. And they're not going to do that unless you as a user tell it, okay, look at all of my Git history, look at all of my conversation history, like look at all this stuff, build some tools. Like I don't care what they are, build some tools that are going to help us move faster in the future. And that's where a lot of the tools I built, like packx and others, have come from. Was like, okay, build some tools, and then the AI agents have scripts where they can rely on them to do a lot of the things they've done in the past, kind of manually, where they like invoke their own tools. They can have access to scripts that will move things a lot faster in the future. Alrighty. Let's see, pipes. I talked about pipes and composition, dump files with headers. I kind of talked ahead on that. All right. But your question, or?
Yeah, we have a question in the chat, and they said, when you export past agent chats, how do you stop that history from getting too big and noisy over time?
Too vague and noisy over time. So from the export command, it's only going to export the like specific conversation that is that's referenced from or when you run the export command. But one thing you can do with the so if you're not familiar with Claude and many others, they store all the past conversations inside of your home directory. This should be a safe enough. Well, it's under Claude projects. And then in here, it'll list all of your projects. There'll be on a bunch of different directories, and I'm not going to run that right now. And inside of there, it'll be a bunch of files that store your conversation history. And most of the tools have this, like your conversation histories are stored somewhere. What you can do is you can ask the agent to write tools that will parse out all the conversations and do things like ignore any lines that look like they're only tool calls, ignore anything that, and again, since they're agents, they're smart enough, and a lot of this faster agents could even do things like ignore anything that looks like it's a fix. I'm only looking for evaluating like features or things that made progress. Ignore conversations that didn't have a Git commit in them. Ignore like, there's all sorts of ways of just having the agent build tools for parsing conversations based on what your end goals are. So when the question is, how can I help my agents with like stale and old conversations that don't help? Like the answer is almost always going to be have agents build tools to help with that. And a lot of that is starting by asking the agents, please help me understand how the projects work inside of this directory so that we can build tools that will help us both. So there's kind of that initial like research phase as well, but definitely get familiar with past conversations, exporting conversations, and building tools around that. I should hopefully have a project for like, it essentially can look at a skill, look at all of your past conversations, and then find where that skill is used in all the past conversations and see if the result of using that skill aligned with the goal of the markdown in the original skill. And then have the AI agent iterate, like make suggestions on how to improve the skill. Like that's the sort of mindset of, I have data, I want things to self-improve based on the way that I use the tools. and like keeping that mindset of here's my current tools, here's how the best work, and what can I build going forward based on the data they produced. And the data for AI agents is conversations, like that's their output. So yeah, get used to those.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear about the self-improvement loops. And I'm just going to squeeze in one more question before we talk about agent personas, because you were just talking about when giving the agents free reign instead of the defined tasks. So we have a question that says, for the agents building tools for themselves idea, how far would you let that go in practice?
I'm pretty, well, I mean, I always review the tools. I want to know what they've built. So I would push it as far as it's willing to go. Most of the time, it's really fascinating to see how far, if you say, benchmark this, make it faster, or how could we limit this so it's always under 10,000 tokens, or how could we attack this? How could we use multiple agents to make this like a parallel task? Like there's all sorts of things you could throw at it and just see what can we do to make this faster. A lot of that can be a research phase where you use a tool like packx and you sit down and have a conversation around like, here are the type of files I'm working with. Here's my specific project. And here, like, I don't know which tools, like specifically one of them is like, what are libraries on NPM or crates or whatever package management system you're using? What are libraries that would help me achieve the goals I'm trying to build in my project? That's a huge one. That's not agents building tools for themselves, but it's like finding tools that you might not know about. And, but as far as like allowing them to go as far as they want, like just like, I would say push it to the limit. But if anything, like kind of smells weird, back off, like use your best judgment. Don't let it, when it becomes time to, ship to GitHub or whatever, just make sure that the target where the agents are pushing their code to have all of these, approval gates that your main branch is protected and on and on. So that anything you do locally can be locally on your personal machine can be this huge experimental mad scientist lab of things everywhere. But once it gets to the rest of your team, make sure you're respecting them so they don't have to review slop. Make sure you're respecting all the rules for your company. So I would say push agents and agent tools as hard as you can, but make sure you have the security and gates and everything in place when it comes time to ship.
Amazing.
Alrighty. I think we're at about time, and I made it to slide 16, so that's impressive for me.
May need another part. I'm intrigued about agent personas, John.
Are there any remaining questions I can tackle before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think we've got one that's quite nice to finish on. And they said, what are your favorite quality of life terminal shortcuts beyond Git and sourcing ZSH, especially for working with agents or browsers?
So my absolute favorite thing right now is this terminal, WEZ term, W-E-Z term, because it has a Lua configuration, which allows you to essentially use programmatic configuration, which means that it's all text-based. So I can send an AI agent against the configuration and tell it, I want this to happen. So say, for example, I want a keyboard shortcut to open a new pane with Claude code running in it. And so it gave me this keyboard shortcut. If I press Command-Shift-C, this is going to launch a new pane, and I can just keep on slamming that open. And I wish that weekly limit thing wasn't there. But I can press that, and I can just start navigating between all of these instances of Claude code. And like this is the sort of, I think, programmatic configuration with Lua, and like Lua is just a great language for it. But other approaches like that are immensely powerful as far as setting up like those real power shortcuts and being able to, I have a shortcut that will allow me to like quick swap between all my projects, which is really cool, but I can't show that right now. And just kind of iterating with your terminal as well, like feeling ownership. Like with WesTerm, I feel ownership of the terminal and the way that it runs. Like I've made this tool mine. I've made the way that, like, I've hidden the tabs right now. That's something I can toggle the tabs on and off, but I hid them because I don't want my other projects on screen. Like, so I guess the main takeaway of my favorite trick is like whatever tool I'm building, like taking ownership of the skill, taking ownership of the terminal and its configuration, taking ownership and finding the things that agents can do, like make sure it's based on text. The configurations are text-based so that agents can go in there and just go to town with them. As far as just other tools, if you look at my I think this is EZA, is this project which will list files in nice, colorful ways and give you much more information about file sizes and last date, like date modified and everything. My cat is alias to a tool called BAT for code highlighting. So if I look at this file using cat, then I'll get code highlighting so I can like read these files in the terminal. I'm very much a, like the shortcut I showed before is anywhere in my terminal, because it's WesTerm, I can hit Command Z and this pops open Z, which opens instantly because it's, you know, fully GPU Rust-based editor on Mac. It opens instantly to that current working directory. And so instead of using Vim and Emacs or any of the editors inside of the terminal, which I think are great, but I just love the ecosystem and extensions and things that I get from using actual IDEs. So I'll go in there and make my modification, and then I'll straight up quit Z, like it quits that fast and opens that fast. So if I just tap Z, like it's open. If I quit, it's gone. Like that's the level of speed we can get up to these days. So those are like my favorites of, definitely WesTerm is amazing, and using WesTerm with shortcuts to open new panes or open editors. And then some of the basics like the EZA, and I mentioned Atuin at the very beginning for managing bash history, and then cat and bat for like file syntax highlighting. And then I don't know, I guess like I have an image shortcut which uses the Vercel SDK for like create an image of a snowman, and this will load in. Oh, I didn't even get into using 1Password for environment variables, so I had to allow 1Password to use my Vercel API key there, and then once this is done, I'll have a image of. I should have done an image of something much more impressive. But if I open this up,
still winter, still apt.
So
hey, nice.
So yeah, like the best tools are the ones you build yourself, I guess, is where this whole presentation ends on.
I love that. There's so much gold in this conversation. And we also had a comment that said, I learned something useful from John every time he talks. So much good advice. And I'm going to have to big plus on that. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Yep. See ya.
Alrighty, guys. And thank you as well to our community for hanging out. So yeah, if you want to join in for our next community session, we have a V0 Power Hour tomorrow, which is extra exciting actually, because they'll be building with the new and improved V0. So yeah, you can find all the details on our community platform at community.vercel.com/live. Thank you all. See you soon. Bye.